During World War II, life in Japan was marked by intense hardship, strict state control, and the full mobilization of society for total war. Under Emperor Hirohito and the militarist government, the Japanese people were subject to powerful propaganda campaigns, widespread rationing, and near-complete regimentation of civilian life. As Japan pursued imperial expansion across Asia and the Pacific, its population was expected to endure sacrifice, maintain unwavering loyalty, and contribute to the war effort in every possible way. Propaganda, shaping thought and loyalty. Propaganda was a central tool in wartime Japan, used to inspire nationalism, glorify the emperor, and demonize the Allies, especially Americans and British. The government tightly controlled all media through the Information Bureau, ensuring that only approved messages reached the public. Key features of Japanese wartime propaganda. Emperor worship. The emperor was portrayed as a divine figure, and loyalty to him was considered a sacred duty. Bushido ideals. Propaganda invoked the samurai code of honor, promoting values like self-sacrifice, loyalty, and death over surrender. Anti-Western messaging. Western powers were painted as corrupt, immoral, and bent on destroying Asia. The war was framed as a liberation campaign for Asian peoples. Censorship and control. Foreign news was blocked, and even domestic news was filtered to hide defeats and exaggerate victories. Films, newspapers, radio, school textbooks, and patriotic songs were all used to rally support and suppress dissent. Children were taught to die for the emperor, and slogans like 100 million hearts beating as one reinforced the idea of total unity behind the war effort. Rationing and economic hardship. As Japan plunged deeper into war, especially after attacking Pearl Harbor and entering a broader conflict against the United States and allies, economic resources became increasingly strained. Rationing measures. Food. Rice, fish, sugar, and soy products were strictly rationed. By 1945, even rice, Japan's staple food, was in short supply, and people resorted to eating millet, acorns, and bark-based substitutes. Clothing. Materials like wool, cotton, and silk were reserved for military use. Civilians wore patched or reused clothing. Fuel and electricity. Gasoline and kerosene were severely restricted. Public transportation was cut back, and many used bicycles or walked long distances. Housing and supplies. Bombings left many homeless. Building materials were diverted to military use, and even household items like pots and pans were collected for scrap. Rationing was enforced by neighborhood associations known as tanarigumi, which monitored compliance and organized community resource sharing. Black markets, however, flourished in major cities as shortages worsened. Civilian mobilization. Every citizen a soldier. Japan embraced a doctrine of total war, meaning that every citizen was expected to contribute, directly or indirectly, to the military effort. This included mobilizing men, women, and children alike. Labor and production. Factory workers. With men conscripted into the military, women and students were drafted into munitions factories to produce weapons, aircraft, and supplies. Student mobilization. University and high school students were taken from classrooms and sent to work in industry or agricultural labor. Volunteer Fighting Corps. In the war's final years, civilians, men aged 15 to 60 and women aged 17 to 40, were trained with bamboo spears and expected to resist a U.S. invasion. Women's role. Women's organizations promoted patriotic motherhood, child-rearing, and domestic support of the war. Many women also worked in war industries and were key to sustaining production amid labor shortages. Bombing, fear, and decline. From 1944 onward, American firebombing raids devastated Japanese cities. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, and Kobe were heavily bombed, and over 500,000 civilians were killed in air raids. The March 1945 firebombing of Tokyo alone killed an estimated 100,000 people in a single night. Citizens endured air raid drills and blackouts, makeshift bomb shelters, evacuation of children to the countryside, constant fear and trauma from aerial attacks. By the summer of 1945, widespread hunger, homelessness, and despair gripped the nation. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August brought further horror and ultimately led to Japan's surrender. Civilian spirit and suffering. Despite their hardships, many Japanese civilians remained loyal and committed, influenced by years of propaganda and cultural values of endurance, gamin, and loyalty, chugi. However, dissent existed, especially among intellectuals, students, and those suffering the worst effects of war. By the end of the war, over 2 million Japanese civilians had died, and tens of millions were left homeless, injured, or traumatized. Life in wartime Japan was characterized by sacrifice, control, and suffering. Through powerful propaganda, rigid rationing, and national mobilization, the Japanese state transformed civilian life into a battlefield of its own. But while the war machine demanded total devotion, it left behind a population exhausted and shattered by the consequences of militarism and imperial ambition. The legacy of that era still echoes in Japan's collective memory and post-war pacifism. Ask ChatGPT.